Okay, so last section of African philosophy, Augustine Shutte, Philosophy for Africa. Okay, first of all, just a couple words about my new policy on late papers. This is general in all my classes. You guys are okay, actually. It's in my other classes that it's catastrophic, but I'm gonna I don't know how to say it, make it uniform. So late papers, not accepted, okay? So, but you do have, like, you have a whole week, so I think this class will be okay. You have a first draft, a bonus draft, as long as I have a final draft, I'm cool with it, right? So it's really up to you, but that final draft has to be in, right? Or whatever, if you did a first draft, it's fine. So yes, so then no more late papers. You missed the whole, how many points? 13, right? If the paper is late. I think I'm dealing with a lot of like post-COVID new students who like have zero self-discipline. Not you, right? But in the younger classes, it's like that. It's like I did a test and like I think 4 out of 20 students handed in the test. I was like, what the hell? So I'm doing this everywhere, and you guys are going to be part of this reformation. Okay, I have the questions, by the way, if you're interested. I'll give them to you at the end of class. Somebody remind me. Can someone raise their hand? Okay, thanks. That way you can start thinking about them, and you have some time to process, and then we'll have our group work on Wednesday. I'm tired. Okay, all right. Let's go to, I'm going to talk about 2 things, Seriti and Ubuntu. Seriti, S-E-R-I-T-I, and then Ubuntu, U-B-U-N-T-U. And I think Weisenberg pointed out, right, that the writing is very different from what we've been doing because he's not a philosopher, right? He's just, these are just the beginnings, right?
Like scholar.
Yeah, he's kind of,
read it from like a college thesis.
Exactly. Yeah, he's really trying to compile some information. He's not yet reflecting deeply on those concepts. He's not, challenging the concepts. He's just compiling because he's trying to start a movement, right? This is just the beginning of African philosophy where he's just starting to think about it, but it would take many, many more people to work on these concepts and to then create something new from these concepts. So yeah, he's more of a compiler. He's a great introduction, but he's not per se a philosopher. In fact, he was a priest, right? That wasn't his thing, right? But it's a good beginning. Okay, so let's go to page 52, where we have the definition of Seriti. And this is all connecting back to Senghor, right? There are connections, of course. Okay, force is being and being is force. Where is that? It's here somewhere on 52. Here it is. Okay, second paragraph on 52, last sentence, right? So here he's quoting Tempels, who is actual philosopher, right? African philosopher. And this Tempels is, we'll just read the whole quote, right? So he's actually, right, this is just a starting point, right? What we're doing in this class is just a starting point to African philosophy. There's a few people you have to read, like Tempels, for instance. So this is what he says. I believe that we should most faithfully render the Bantu thought in a European language by saying that Bantu speak, act. So Bantu is what do you call it? There are many nations in Africa, right? And Bantu is one of these nations who has coined. Yeah, it's a group of tribes, right? So which are living in South Africa, along with other tribes. But these are the biggest. These are the majority tribe, and he's of course exploring their philosophical concepts, right? So they speak, act, live as if for them beings were forces. Force is not for them an adventitious accidental reality. Force is even more than a necessary attribute. Force is the nature of being. Force is being. Being is force. Basically saying what we said last time, matter is energy. Energy is matter. That's what he's saying. We are made up of force or energy or spirit, like Buber would say, right? This is all going back to, again, this is like Buber, they're going against the materialistic view that we are just, right, molecules. Right. We also have, and I think Buber said that, and so did Senghor, we have an element of spirit blowing through us, an energy, that animates us, a psyche, a consciousness, and they're all kind of saying the same thing, right? So they're really trying to point out that we are more than just matter, right? We are also energy. And Seriti is this energy that inhabits us, that we radiate, that in a way connects us to other energies, right? If we were not energy, there would be no connection. Just, you know, we would just be sitting there like objects, right? So the energy is what creates this influence, mutual influence, right? Okay, so that's, we talked about this again. We talked about the quantum physics, perhaps foundation of this, right? These views. And so there are two consequences of this idea, that being is force and force is being, or if you want to use Senghor's language, matter is energy, energy is matter, right? Same idea. Two consequences, which we've seen already, but I'm going to go deeper. Number one, if we are just energy or force, then we are more permeable to each other than we thought. We are more permeable. We are more open, right? Impermeable means nothing can come in. Permeable, everything can come in. So we are constantly, I am constantly receiving your energy. You are constantly receiving my energy. We are in constant contact, right? So he says this here on page 52. Go to the fourth paragraph. He's talking here about influence, right? The African concept of force certainly contains this idea of activity and so forth, but it also contains the idea of influence on another, of a movement or pressure outwards, an active relationship to the rest of the universe of forces, right? So we are constantly radiating something and receiving radiation, right, from other people. And we are not, like the West thought, self-contained. Where is this quote? Here we are, right? Continuing. The African idea of force has a global reference that is quite fundamental in a way that the European idea of being has not, right? Beings are always somehow self-contained, right? The Western psyche is self-contained. It's in a body. It's not radiating anywhere, right? But in the African concept, we are constantly emitting light, emitting energy, emitting warmth, right? And thereby touching others and being touched by others, right? That's the main idea here. So I want to talk a little bit about this influence, right? This is really interesting because when you talk about matter, if you're looking at things as people as material objects, and they come into contact, right? So if this comes into contact with this, there's a kind of, like here we are, I'm just going to put them on the desk, right? So if this moves here, boom, it moves my little phone thing, right? So you can say that one being affects the other and in a way creates the movement of the other, right? So we're, and we tend to see each other like that. We don't want people to tell us what to do. We don't want people to push us around. We don't want, right? But that's the material way, right? When we're in the material realm, if this object hits that object, then we have a kind of passive active, right? Always, anytime an object hits another, one is active, one is passive, and you always have domination, right? In the Western, if you see life as materialistic, you will always have, relationship will always be seen as active and passive, domination, dominated. You can't have anything else on the level of the material realm, right? Are you following me on this? Right, let me illustrate again, right? If I have, this pencil in this, whatever this is, right? If one is acting upon the other, boom, then you have this thing becomes, this thing is passive, this thing is active. So if we see each other as material beings, there's always going to be an active and a passive, a domination and a dominated, right? Dominating, dominated. And that's how the West has seen relationship. In relationships in the Western mindset, they cannot do other type of relationship than domination, dominated, passive, active. Even gender relations, they have defined as passive, active, and domination, dominated, right? So, and then other relationship with others is always in that structure, right? But that's if you see things on a purely material level, where yes, one object touches the other, that object is active, the other object is passive. Are you seeing the problem here? Now, to see things as energies, to see things completely differently, right? So remember when we did the two, let me get my candles. Two candles, right? If I'm putting this light on this light, right? It enhances, right? It doesn't create the new light, it just enhances whatever is there. Are you following me? Right? So when we talk about influence, this is really interesting. When you're influenced by another, you're not, what's the word? Try to see what, when you're influenced by another, it's not the other doing something to you, it's the other activating something that is already there. That's the difference. Let me say it again. When you're influenced by someone, right, it's not the other is doing something to you, shifting something in you, changing something in you. It's actually the other is rather activating something in you, awakening something in you, right? Adding to who you are rather than taking away who you are by acting upon you. I'll give you an example right now. Let's take the example of conversation, right? You're having a conversation, maybe you don't agree, right? And you're talking and talking, and as you're talking, the other person is awakening in you more arguments, or maybe they're shifting your perspective a little, but you're still saying, oh, I see what you mean. So I can now understand this like this based on, like, for example, let's have a conversation between a Christian and a Muslim, right? Okay, and they're talking about the nature of God. So how is this going to go? The Muslim's going to go, well, you Christians, right? You have you're guilty of idolatry because you have 2 gods, 3 maybe, right? Jesus, Father, Holy Ghost, right? So Muslim is criticizing the Christian. Christian is like, you know, taking it all in, being like, this is annoying. I'm not guilty of idolatry. And so they're trying to respond. So the Christian will respond, well, if you look in the Quran, God does refer to himself as a they, doesn't he? Now the Muslim is like, oh, damn. Right? Is God really plural? And so do you see how that, just that conversation, tiny bit of conversation, you can see how they're not, the Christian is not becoming a Muslim, the Muslim is not becoming a Christian, but their own view of themselves is broadening. The Muslim now remembers God is a they. Maybe there is a multiplicity in the divinity that I didn't know. And the Christian is thinking, how do I not become guilty of idolatry? How is God still one? You see, so from within themselves, they're shifting without losing themselves. Do you see what I'm saying? In other words, the other person in the conversation has activated something in me, has broadened who I am, has not made me into them, but has broadened or deepened who I am. I'm now obliged to go deeper and see things deeper from my perspective, right? I've just broadened my own perspective. Are you following what's going on? That's influence. Right? It's, in the Western concept, however, the Muslim or the Christian comes to the Muslim or vice versa. Okay, you got to think like me now, right? But here we are talking about mutual influence where what I have said to you has opened up something in you, but in you has not made you me, but made you more you. That's the idea. Influence is awakening or deepening you instead of making you into me. I am activating, awakening, broadening your own self, your own perspective, right? Okay. So any questions so far on this notion of influence? This is important to see the difference, right? Anybody unclear about this? We're good? Okay. All right. Good. So the idea is here that the other doesn't change me into themselves, but the other rather awakens me in a way that I cannot awaken myself. That's one of the main ideas here, right? There's things that I will not become until the other calls them out of me, right? This is the consequence of this, that there are regions in ourselves that will never blossom until they are activated by the other, right? So the other is there to activate me, to broaden me, to awaken me, not to change me or coerce me or transform me, right? The other is just there to activate, that's what it means to influence, right? To go in the flow, not to destroy it. Okay, so that's the idea here, right? This notion that who we are must be activated by the other. The other is what activates in us things that were dormant and that can now become. So for example, I'll give you another example, right? You say you're in a relationship with, I don't know. So we have, first example, the friend who's of a different faith, right? you can see how that friend is going to activate in you tolerance, a broader way of seeing things, the capacity to listen that you didn't have before, correct? So they're opening that up for you now because you love them, right? You want to listen, you want to hear what they're saying. So now you become, number one, more tolerant. Number two, you cannot, if you're a Christian, you cannot hate Muslims anymore because you have Muslim friends, right? Number three, you start to see things based on what they said on a deeper level. So that friend has activated things in you that weren't there before. The same with a romantic relationship or parent relationship, right? You thought you could love, but now you are so tested by the relationship that you realize, oh, I can love much deeper than I first thought, right? I have more love in me than I thought because I am going through this craziness with this crazy person and I'm still there at the end of the day. I did not know I had this capacity for love. I did not know I had this capacity for patience, right? It's the other that activates these dormant regions in you. Are you following? So there's things in you that you don't even know you are capable of until the other pushes you to the edge, right? You didn't know you could be this patient. You didn't know you could be this loving. You didn't know you could be this angry. Right? You didn't know you could know such peace, or you didn't know you could be this tolerant, or you didn't know you could change your mind like that, right? So that's the idea. Yes.
So, and in this, does the influence of the other is the only thing important in that relation is things that you're saying, like normal things? Because in the discussion we were having over there, I was saying, like, if I love music, right? I love everything about music. And let's say I'm a really good musician, but society sees that I'm so good at math that I could help change the world. Like, I'm so good at math that everybody in society is telling me I need to do math. But I personally just want to do music, and I'm really good at it, and I'm successful at it, and it's helping me. Am I now supposed to say that I'm not doing music anymore because society is telling me that I can change the world as a mathematician?
Here's what happened. Society made you aware of your gift as a mathematician. That's it. Ultimately, you decide what to do, but all people do is they don't tell you what to do. They awaken the possibilities in you. So you thought you would do music, but society or other people have awakened this other possibility. And then, of course, you decide. But you would not have known that until your peers, your teachers, like, you're so damn good at math, you should do math, right? So they've awakened more. So you thought you, by yourself, you're just going to think you're a good musician. Society, however, has shown you you're both a good musician and a good mathematician. That's it, right? And that's influence. That's like, oh, they've awakened that part. So other people, what they do is they awaken different potentialities in you that you did not even know was there. They awaken it and they give you back to yourself, basically, right? The relationship of domination takes you away from yourself. You are now dominated by me. I am the will here. I decide what happens. But the relationship of influence gives you back to yourself, right? It opens up all the different possibilities that you are in a way that you can't do by yourself, right? And this is what's interesting. Again, right? We know here, we see this here in African philosophy, you can never even know yourself without others who awaken these possibilities, right? You don't even know your full potential or experience your full potential, your full, what do you call it? When you have like a painter and they have all the colors, what is that? What? Yeah, the whole spectrum of who you are is only revealed through other people, right? So, and we see that later when we talk about the mother, the mentor, and all that. Okay, so that's the difference, right? Let me say it again. Domination takes you away from yourself, right? Which is the subject object, the active passive, the way that Westerners think of relationship is always, the relationship will always take away some of my freedom, take away, you know, my agency, take away many things, right? And what the Africans are saying, no, it's not taking away. It's awakening in you dormant possibilities. It's giving you back to yourself. That's the main distinction between influence and control, right? And that's, I think, the really, really interesting idea that, for example, to go back to, we won't have this example on the test, but the notion of abortion, we should, let me put it there. I'm putting it everywhere. Hot topic right now in our country. So let me not say anymore, right? Let me just say one more time, right? The relationship Western concept of relationship always takes away from me. My resources, my time, my energy is taken away. African concept is no, you're not taken away from, you're given back to yourself, because all these things all of a sudden awaken in you that you didn't even know you could be. You didn't know you could love this much. You didn't know you could sleep this little. You didn't know you could, right? You didn't know you could be this patient, or you didn't know you could be this tolerant, or this good communicator. You did, all these things awaken in relationships. So the other gives us back to ourselves. Okay. So then second consequence of serity, right? And this is really interesting. This is the African concept of ethics. I thought that was really pretty brilliant. Ethics is seen strictly as an increase or decrease of life force. The criteria is the increase, or the criteria is energy, life force. So whatever increases life force is good. Whatever decreases life force is bad. You can divide everything in those terms, right? So for example, you kill someone, is it good or bad in African worldview? Why? Decreases life force, right? Let's take a few more. I'm gonna dig my own grave right now. Let's see what else we can do. Trying to think of other, yeah, go ahead. Okay, eating, are you saying eating fast food? Is that what you're saying behind your mask? Yeah, eating a hamburger, moral or immoral in the African? Decreases life, immoral. Next time you go eat your burger, it's immoral.
Does it apply to animals also?
What do you mean?
Because you said that.
Oh, if you kill animals, yeah. Yes, you're killing animals to have your, so African worldview would be like, we should all be vegan, right? Because as we are decreasing the life force of the universe through the killing of animals, we are performing immoral actions, right? Decrease of life force, decrease of biosphere, decrease of our forests, decrease of our water. This is all seen immoral. Oh, I'm seeing such a nice environmental question right here. Okay, yes. The what?
Filling up my car with gas is
Yes, to a certain degree, because this is interesting. Yes, let's hear it. Same thing, right? Although the way the animals do it, which is very interesting, right? The animals hit always on the weakest, on the one who's already dying. This is a rule in the animal kingdom. They never eat the strongest. They go for the weakest, who's already going to die anyways, and they eat that. So in a way, the animals are thinking, let me decrease the life force as little as possible and balancing it out with the increase of my life force. Are you following? So the way they're doing it is to make it so that there's the least possible decrease of life force. Yeah. Yes, it's also it's also because it's easier to kill. Yes, for sure. Yeah, that's true. But at the same time, it's actually, there's a wisdom in that too, right? The nature has done it well, that the weakest are the ones that should be eaten in the end, right? Sadly, yes. So this, it does, yeah, how would they deal with that? Is it equal to murder a human or an animal?
What if you're like starving and you eat one
That's different, because now it's your life force against theirs,
so
right?
how does it balance it out?
Balance out. Now, maybe Chardin would help us, because the more complex, the more consciousness, right? So we have the more life force than the, I don't know, snake. So in that sense, I kill the snake to live, I am increasing the life force. The snake kills me, decreasing the life force. So it's interesting, right? This way of thinking, yes. You'll pick in the questions. Yeah, I'll make you pick. You can pick. Okay, are you getting, yes?
There's like only like living things have energy.
So everything to a certain degree, but what the more complex, remember, is the more life force, right?
So like a tree, let's say, have like a little bit of energy.
Exactly, and then we have more, right? Or an animal has more in a way, right? But I don't know, right? According to Chardin, yes, right? So in that sense, in that framework, you cut down a tree so you can live, it's okay, because you're increasing life force overall.
Abortion.
Yeah, that's going to be a nice test question, right? What would
There's
saying?
like a little bit of energy, but
Okay, good point. Yes, and you can look at it like that, or there are other ways to look at it, obviously, right? Which I'm hoping you will. But but absolutely. And by the way, you're not killing the mother. Having the baby is not a decrease of life force, right? Aborting the baby would be a little bit decreased, but not too much. So it's not too much a big deal, right?
The limits of energy?
Right, exactly.
How
So
do you measure it?
so, but you're right. It's not as bad to kill an unborn baby than to kill a full-grown human. It's biblical too, right? Same idea in the biblical text, where it's interesting. There is actually, for those who are Bible thumpers, here's a good response. Biblical text talks about abortion once is a miscarriage. You hit a woman, she miscarries. You only give her money. It's not eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, as though they would kill the actual woman, right? If you kill the woman, then you die. But if you kill the baby, you just give some financial compensation. So the biblical text is in line with this, right? The life force is not that great, so it's not that big of a deal than killing a full-grown human, right? So in that sense. Great, you guys are getting it. So this is really interesting. I really like this, right? This view of so here's a quote for that, page 57. And you can just look at many things that we consider moral or immoral in that perspective, and it becomes really interesting. So last paragraph on 57, a final remark on this idea of goodness as increase of life force, right? But there's another quote also, which is better. Yeah, page 57 also. Yes, go to the first paragraph, the big one, and go to the fifth line, the fundamental norm. Are you there? Fifth line on the first big paragraph in 57. Okay, the fundamental norm in the ethics of traditional African thought is human nature itself. It is the living muntu who by divine will is the norm of either ontological or natural law. Now here it is. And as this nature is understood in terms of serity or vital force, so the moral life in all its individual social political ramifications is understood as a struggle to increase the power of this force. And then here's the key, and this is from Temples still. I guess we should read him next time, huh? The activating, this is the line you understand, underline. The activating and final aim of all Bantu effort is only the intensification of vital force. And then last line, anything that diminishes this force is evil, anything that increases it is good, right? So this is very interesting ramification. Okay, I'm looking for my phone. Okay, so any questions before we go to Ubuntu? Concept of Ubuntu. Good, okay. Okay, Ubuntu. Now we can better understand this idea that this quote that we saw in the beginning, which was, where was it? Trying to find it. Very beginning, I think. What was this? Person, here it is. Person is a person through other persons. That's the quote we had. Where is it? Page 46. Yes. Second paragraph in 46, right? The concept of a person enshrined in the proverb, umuntun, gumuntun, gabantu. This is the, you guys know how to pronounce this. Is so cool. This ethnic group, I'm going to teach you this, how to pronounce this. You got to go while saying hosa, with the vowel. Very cool. So anyways, this is the hosa expression of a notion that is common to all African languages and traditional cultures. Here's the line, a person is a person through persons, right? Very similar to Buber, I hope you're noticing, right? When Buber said, what was that famous quote? I keep on forgetting it. Saying I say you, or something like that, or saying, right, that's one quote we had in Buber. Is the same idea, that we are a person through other persons. So we're going to look into more details in that, of that idea now. Okay, so first thing that we're noticing is that I think one of you asked, well, I can still be a person in isolation, right? I mean, it exists, people who live in like hermits, they're still people. And the African concept would say, yeah, they're people, but they're not fully who they could be, right? They're not fully awakened. All their potentialities have not been developed. So in that sense, you're not fully a person. You're just half a person. you know, a quarter of a person until you enter these interactions, right? So basically saying my growth, my self-development depends on my interactions. If I have limited interactions, limited growth. Many, many interactions, a lot of different types of interactions, a lot of growth, right? So this is really a nice argument for the integration of, you know, schools and neighborhoods and so forth. The more integrated, the more interactions, the more diverse your interactions, the more you are able to develop yourself. So the quote for that is here on page 50. Last paragraph. Yeah. I'm trying to miss. What is that? I can't find my quotes today. Oh, well, just read that. Okay, go to the last person. Persons subsist only in the relationships that unite them to others. The character of persons changes as these relations change. In African thought, this change is understood in a very radical way. It is persons themselves as a whole that change. We are, in fact, under construction, right? So we are constantly under construction, and it is other people who are helping us build ourselves up. As we grow older, we become more and more of a person, more ourselves. Continuing, in African thought, however, the growth of a person has not only a psychological meaning, but an ethical one. In other words, you don't grow just emotionally or physically, you grow as you are able to enter into different types of relationships. And we're going to see the 3 levels of relationships that build up the person, right? And so as Menkiti puts it, personhood is something at which individuals could fail. In other words, you could fail at becoming the full person that you are by missing some of those crucial relationships which bring you to that point, right? So if you're missing these, so even though you've grown up as, you know, you have and you know, we know people like this, they're fully grown babies, right? So they're immature, they're, you know, they have all kinds of emotional problems. So even if you're fully grown physically, you can still be extremely immature because you have not been able to develop these relationships and these different types of relationships, which we'll talk about in a bit, right? Okay, so let's look at that. 3 stages. I'm just going to summarize. It was in your text. There's 3 types of relationships that we all need. And if we skip it, we're going to grow up all messed up, right? Number 1, the baby and the mother. This is where a lot of us, this is the first place where we get messed up, right? Mother basically is there, right, to create a sense of safety, right? To create security, to create the idea that you can be responded to, right? The mother is the one that creates the first connection. If the mother is absent or if the mother does not respond, the psychology of that individual will be messed up for life, right? They're always going to be self-absorbed. They're not going to be able to trust other people, to feel safe in the universe, and they will act in immature ways because of that, right? They're going to not be able to connect, ask for help, or, you know, feel like they can trust you, feel safe with you, right? They're going to have issues with trust. And so the mother is the first one, right? Who creates the first level of relationship, which is basic trust in human beings, basic dependence on each other. You skip that, the mother messes up here, you mess up the child for life. And we see many people, right, because they didn't have proper response when they were children, now are still having issues with trust or having issues with depending on others, right? They're completely autosufficient, right? They don't know how to ask for help or anything like this. Is all connected to the initial, right? So this is the first stage, very important for the building. Second stage, he talks about, this is self-knowledge and self-affirmation. This is your peers. So how did your friends, how did your teachers view you? This can either build you or tear you down, right? Were you bullied? Were you always told you're an idiot, right? Did people find you unattractive? This will define you. Or were you praised? Were you affirmed? Were you encouraged? This, again, builds you up into who you will become. And to miss that section, to miss that part, is to really not know truly who you are. If you didn't have a teacher, or like Williams was saying, society telling you you're good at math, you won't know it, right? If your peers, if your environment didn't tell you you're good at this, you should do this, I like how you do that, you don't know it, and you never do anything. This is, by the way, this is the problem in the reason a lot of us are disoriented and don't know what to do with our lives, right? There's, you don't know, like, you're not sure, what can I do? There's so many things to do. What should I do in my life? Because no one awakened in you what you're specifically good at. We all have it, but other people have to see it and tell you. So if you come from a place or an environment where people were not able to hone in on you and be like, you're good at this, you should do this, this is your gift. If no one told you this is your gift, you don't know. And so I see people going like this, trying different things, not knowing where they're going, and until they're 40 or 50, and finally they figure it out, right? But if when you were very young, people are already telling you, damn, you're so good at this, you should do this, then you quickly focus, and you're able to quickly find, right? So important, right? This second level of self-development, people seeing your gifts, people seeing your calling and calling it out of you, right? Beautiful passage. I'm just thinking about this as I'm talking about this. I think we talked about this when Adam names Eve. Do you remember this? When he calls, the second time he names her. First time he just calls her extension of myself, but the second time he gives her the name of the mother of all living. What is he? Anybody remember what he's doing? How powerful this moment is? What has she just done that all of a sudden he's saying something very, very interesting? What has she? When he names her, it's after something she's just done. Anybody remember what it was? Yeah.
She made him become a tree.
Okay, she created the downfall of everything, right? Everything now is going to die because of this mistake that she did. He doesn't bat and what do you call it? Bat. Thank you. Bat an eyelash. Who is it that you bat? Right? Doesn't bat an eyelash. He says, actually, no, you are the mother of living. You're not the mother of death. He sees something in her that she was not seeing at that point anymore because of the terrible thing that just happened. So we need people to name us, right? To call us forth, to awaken the destiny in us. We cannot do it on our own. And the reason a lot of us are meandering, not knowing what to do, is because we have not been called, right? We have not been named. Okay. So last one is the one that we are also very often missing. This is the third state. This is the state of self-transcendence and self-donation. And this is where a lot of us stumble, right? This is the place where in the African culture, you get married, you start a family, you have kids. Okay, so it doesn't have to be this traditional for us, but it has to go in that direction, right? So we don't have that concept of traditional marriage anymore, but we should still maintain the idea that the highest level of self-development is self-donation. Highest level of development is not self-possession, like in the West. Ooh, I possess a house, I possess the wife, I possess children, I possess a dog, I possess money, I possess power. This is how we see self-development, what I possess. The African view is different. It's what you're giving. How much are you giving of yourself? This is what is telling us how highly developed you are. Are you now giving back in a way or other, right? It doesn't have to be, you have to have traditional man, woman, children, right? It doesn't have to be like that, but are you giving back? Are you helping a child? Are you helping adults? Are you giving of yourself? Are you pouring of yourself into this world to somebody, right? And it doesn't have to be in the traditional way, but are you getting to that point? And this is where we fail, right? A lot of us, as soon as those responsibilities come, right? We are afraid of those responsibilities, right? That come with taking care of another human being, because we don't want to lose our freedom, our agency, our self-possession. And the Africans saying to us, well, you are then never going to reach the highest level of self-development, right? Self-development passes through that stage of donation in some form or other, right? And by the way, this is so interesting, the connection with Levinas. True freedom is the ability to pour yourself out in this way. This is exactly what Levinas was arguing. Let me find you the quote, page 88. I would love a doctoral dissertation on Levinas and African philosophy, right? One of you maybe later. Here it is on the top. Let's go before, sorry, I can't talk today. Page 87. Last sentence. But here, as in the other two stages, there is no question of a diminishment of personal freedom due to an absorption by other persons, right? When you get to that point of self-donation, remember what Levinas was saying. It is not a servitude. It looks like servitude, but it's not. This is not a diminishment of the freedom. And he continues, the exact opposite is the case. Self-transcendence and self-donation represent the fullest expression of my freedom. So we have to stop there and analyze that a little bit, because this is also very interesting. Can you tell me what you think? How is it that here I am, I have to take care of, you know, potential spouse, I have to take care of people who need me. How am I not losing my freedom? Now, I used to be able to get up, do my workout, do yoga, you know, go eat out, do this. I had all this time for myself, hang out with friends, go hiking, and now I'm stuck at home cooking meals, right? Okay, how have I not lost all of my freedom? Tell me. Reassure me. How am I more free now when I'm stuck at home cooking meals than when I was doing all these things I like to do? What does it mean to be free? That's the question in this context. How must we redefine freedom to be able to see that situation as free? I'm listening. Yes.
Well, I guess like what we said with Levinas, how we said like the bounty of the good is like it's like canceled out by the bounty of the good. So when you're like, even though you think to yourself like, oh, like I have to do this other person, but it's like rewarding because you're doing like that person's gonna like see you as like someone that cares for them. And it creates like this relationship that's like beneficial for you and the other person.
How is it beneficial for me? Like I'm getting how I'm beneficial for the other person, but how am I beneficial for me?
You're married to someone and then you show that you're putting in effort, you know, you're going to create this good marriage, and you don't want like a marriage where you're not like doing
I don't want a shitty marriage, so I better cook some good meals. Okay, now I see what does anyone want to help him with this? Yes, Nasiri.
Like gaining more energy or like spiritually or more that you do.
Okay, you're on the right track. Now it's not just one, it's two. So I am actually, my life force is increasing, right? But how is the giving of my life force? Freedom, because I get it. It's beneficial in that sense. My life force is increasing, right? But how is my giving of my life force to the other person, how is that freeing? I'm not seeing that yet. Yes.
It's like we think that freedom is the ability to do whatever we want, whenever we want, but it's really the ability to be true to ourselves and like self-actualization. So when we are giving our life force to the other person, we're coming into ourselves and learning our like full sense of self, and that's very freeing.
Exactly, right? Freedom as self-actualization. To the degree that I blossom completely, I am free. So it's a different way of seeing freedom. The Western way of seeing freedom is I get to do everything I want to do, right? Here, this is I get to be everything that I was meant to be. You see the difference? Right? Let me say it again. Western concept of freedom is I get to do whatever I want to do, right? Or I get to have whatever I want to have. African concept of freedom is I get to be everything I was meant to be. So it's not about having, it's about being. It's a different level to understand the freedom. The first one is I have everything I want. This is freedom. The second one, I am everything I was meant to be. That's the second concept of freedom. So for example, when you look at a tree and the tree has reached maturity and the tree is blossoming and giving fruit, the tree at that moment is at its highest potential. It is at its freest in that sense of self-actualization. So that's the idea here, that I am free in as much as I am everything that I was meant to be. Everything, all my gifts are released. I am blossoming fully in all levels of my being. At that moment, I am the most free. So it's in that sense that we have to understand this freedom here, right? Okay, great. Any questions before we conclude? Okay, so I hope you're seeing this is still right. These writers are just beginning. It's the philosophy, this worldview is in its infancy still. I'm really hoping that people will develop these ideas and especially teach them more in the West, right, to a Western audience, because they're really, really fascinating. And the connections with Jewish thought are also really interesting. Okay, I'm going to give you questions right now, and then I'll write them also on Blackboard. So for these, you can pick either Shutte or Senghor, right? Forget about Chardin. I mean, you can include Chardin if you're making an argument when you're talking about Senghor, right? But I'm going to just ask you Senghor or Shutte on the following. What would Senghor or Shutte think about the slogan, keep America first, make America first? What is it? Yes, I've repressed all these slogans. Make America first? Not great again. There was something about just plain America first. Right, this is our foreign policy, right? I mean, it was, thank God. It was our foreign policy that we...
Like 3 presidents.
Yeah, there's a few that were like that, not just Trump, right? This, there was a few before, the kind of isolationist idea that we need to be first, right? And the rest, you know, the hell with them. So what would Senghor or Shutte think about America first? Number 2, what would Senghor and Shutte think about Black Lives Matter? Just the why they matter. Why would they matter? Why do they matter? I'm interested. How would they frame that? Number 3, this is a trick question, be careful. It's not the obvious answer that you all have in your heads. What would Shutte and Senghor think about gentrification? Trick question, careful. Same thing, immigration. Here's a good one now. What would they think about solitary confinement? This has just been reinstated by our mayor, right? In you know, the mayor, Adams, whom I like very much, but he has done this one policy that it used to be taken out. The solitary confinement was considered inhumane, right? And now he has just put it back into the system. So I'm curious, what would Shutte and Senghor think about solitary confinement? Remember, we do solitary confinement in order to teach someone a lesson, right? I think that's the reason we do it. So is it working? Are they learning anything?
What do you mean, like in the jail?
Yeah, in the jails. Yeah. So we do it so they can, the idea is this, that in solitude, they will reflect on their actions. That's the idea, and become a better person. That is really the idea. So go from there, because you need to know the philosophy behind it. Philosophy behind it is that they need to be isolated so they can reflect by themselves on their terrible actions and become better people. What would Shutte and Senghor think about this? Does it work? This is a good one. What did I write here? Oh, abortion. How did I think about that again? I guess I'm not seeing the answer yet, but I'll put abortion in there. And then I have an illegible thing here that I wrote, which I really cannot read anymore. So I don't know. Oh, the environment. Yeah, what would they think about the protection of the environment? Or what would be their ethics of the environment? So those are all the questions you can think about. I'm going to put them in Blackboard, and then on Wednesday you'll discuss them together, and then you can start already writing now if you want to start early. Okay, that's all for today. I'm going to stop the recording.